Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of March the 6th till the 12th, 2023. We have quite a big astrological week ahead of us because there is a lot going on in the sky. There are different types of energies at play, but all of them are going to be perhaps dominated by Saturn changing signs. And following Saturn in a few days, it's going to be Pluto. So this is going to be very, very significant, both individually, of course, but also collectively, because these are big collective planets. So Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, of course, they influence all of us very deeply personally, but their collective expression is felt that much more stronger and intensely when they make very, very big moves in the sky. And a very simple example is going back to 12th of January 2020, when Pluto met with Saturn in a conjunction in the sign of Capricorn, along with other planets as well. And we felt that immediately and very, very strongly everywhere. So yes, when these big planets make very important moves in the sky, we are almost dragged into that mood collectively and individually. So we are definitely going to be experiencing this, especially that the sign of Pisces, Saturn's host sign for the next 2.5 years, is a very, very emotional, it is a very actually illusionary energy, but the core of the illusion and the fuel, the source of the illusion is actually the world of emotion, of soul, of feelings, of psyche, everything that isn't real but feels more real than the real. So, and needless to say, Pisces is the most spiritual energy and expression and symbolism out there in all manifestations and expressions of the spirit, from the more elevated, almost sacred, to the opposite of this. So, yes, some of the greatest acts of spiritual cruelty, so crimes against the spirit, for example, in magic, in altering reality, in altering fate, etc., etc., well, those are also in the domain of Pisces. One might think Scorpio does have the methodology and the research and the determination, but where the casting stage is actually Pisces. So this Saturn entering and starting its transit in the sign of Pisces is a big deal, both for the ethereal, for the invisible, even for the divine and sacred, but also for the very earthly. Because we must never forget the mutable expression of Pisces. It is ethereal, don't get me wrong. It can rarely take a shape and form, but its effect is not all that much ethereal. Now, let me give you one of the most simplest examples. You know, in Greece, in around the area, of course, of Mount Athos, where one of the greatest, sacred point of the Christian world is, there are certain caves which are inhabited by monks. Now, depending on the level of power, devotion, and of course faith of the monk, some are totally immune to the strong vapors, uh, steam if you'd like, so water vapor from the sea, from the flowing water within the cave. So whoever lives there basically is in this moist, damp, Piscean, the sea environment, and it is basically the closest physical expression we can get to ether. The physical appearance of Pisces, basically, that mist, that water vapor, basically, long story short. But You might say, well, it's not really a big deal, it's just water vapor, right? Yeah, it can give you a bit of asthma and stuff like that, but it's highly, 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 highly corrosive. And it kind of eats through everything. So you can imagine that the spiritual expression of Pisces dissolves everything, just like that water vapor. And Pisces has a lot of time. So over the course of time, Saturn is time. And with this Saturn entering the sign of Pisces, both collectively and individually, of course, we are going to experience how our own mist, the mist of our emotions, the mist of our state of consciousness, the mist of our mental and emotional and psychological health and well-being has corroded or not a certain area of our lives. Because if it has corroded, then we need to make amends. You know what I mean? So, one of the best protections against, that rust ultimately, rusting down on every Saturn, can be seen as, the solid metal, and Pisces, the rust dissolving everything. So this is where even Saturn himself, the structure, the foundation, karma, the great karmic judge, especially in the sign of Pisces, because in the sign of Pisces is all about divine justice, but divine justice in a way where we can no longer elude it. And some people might argue that, well, there's no evading karma, right? In the wrong. There are a lot of methods to evade karma, and modern society, people have found the most ingenious ways. Now, let me give you the prime example of this. When you marry someone out of interest. Now, the karma of that person who you marry is going to protect you physically. So, chances are karma cannot touch you in your financial situation. Financial situation means doctors. Karma is very less likely to be able to touch you with physical health because you can bypass it physically. Karma cannot also touch you all that much psychologically because there are very, very brilliant therapists and healers in the world. So karma has to wait until you reach your more vulnerable point, and for any reason you get spiritual, and then you'll get torn apart immediately. So, but if you don't, then in this incarnation you bypass karma. The consequence, do this over again from A to Z. Because you bypassed it, you didn't really do anything. It was fun, but you didn't accomplish what you needed to accomplish at all. But this is a prime example of karmic bypassing. Now, in the sign of Aquarius, Saturn not just allowed this, because it was challenged by Uranus, remember? It actually catalyzed this. Let's bypass karma, no problem at all. I'll let you manifest what you want. But when it enters in the sign of Pisces, that's where the tricks don't work anymore. The karmic judge. Life, the universe, the divine will make it such a way where there's no evading karma. It can have a high element of ruthlessness to it, where it can repair the karmic bonds emotionlessly, without mercy, mathematically. And what we suffer, all of us, will not matter all that much. Now, if we put the element of mercy and compassion to the table, of course, it will not be that way. But you can imagine that some industries, some elements of the human world, some people, some artists, actors, no doctors, scientists. Why the symbols of Pisces? Some spiritual readers, gurus, Why not even high priests? Why? Because Saturn rules Capricorn, the high priest. The Hierophant. Not in tarot, not in tarot, not in tarot. In tarot it's Taurus. But Capricorn does have a Taurus deacon. So, but anyway, where I want to go with this, we will see their karmic justice. When no leader, no institution, no group, no industry, no movie, no series, no actor, no anything Saturnian will be able to withstand divine justice. So some people will, Pisces, their fall, which can be graceful, merciful, withdrawing on their own accord, and then it's a beautiful expression, and Saturn rewards that. But if it's ungrateful, well then, we will see how the divine takes justice, Saturn, seriously. And why all that much divine justice? Jupiter and Saturn have been following, as in Saturn has been following Jupiter's tracks ever since the Great Conjunction in 2020, December 2020. So Jupiter puts down the ethereal imprint, what we believe, the essence of justice, while Saturn follows Jupiter and executes it. Jupiter cannot manifest anything without Saturn. And Saturn, as it follows Jupiter, especially when Jupiter hasn't, how should I say, whizzed away from Saturn all that much. And right now, Jupiter is in the sign of Aries, and Saturn is in the sign of Pisces by now, this week. So they're just one sign away. So their, unity is still ongoing for a little bit. Not all that much, but it's Saturn still manifests what Jupiter has done, what Jupiter has laid down for Saturn. And Saturn, is the judge. So it has to decide if what Jupiter played out there in faith, in philosophy, in knowledge, in research, in whatever you wish, if it's possible or not, if it's correct or not. And there we had Jupiter retrogrades. And Jupiter in its retrogrades made some very key movements. Again, those retrogrades were the correction. Because Saturn put down the bricks. So Jupiter needed also to correct himself. And why am I saying all of this? Because this is so important this week. This is when all of us might be feeling that the divine spotlight is on us, when we're under the microscope, when the quality control, the inspector, the head teacher, when we're at the exam, the auditor, or I don't know how you call that, the teacher who holds the exam, the host of the exam. So the head, I don't know, master, or, is inspecting us. And Pisces, how well do we embody our faith? How honest we are of what we feel within and what we put outside? And Pisces also, when it comes to our faith, our deepest faith, how much, because again, I must recall the sign of Aquarius where Saturn is exiting from. Aquarius is the collective and the individual, equally important, and both in dichotomy but also in symbiosis. So this is where the individual was greatly empowered. Now Pisces is the communion, where the individual but also the collective just dissolve into something higher than them. Let me exemplify nature, because nature is basically the best everything. Ants, bees, there is the communion there. Yes, it is a certain pheromonal imprint of the queen, but that's Pisces. Pisces is actually hormone, immune system, blood chemistry, blood. So Pisces is a lot of water within us. Scorpio is also that, but Scorpio is more like the substance is dissolved in the water. Pisces is the whole of the water, everything. Pisces the sign of finalities. Pisces the also the sign of the undoing of the self. And the undoing of the self in the higher expression is dissolving into the spirit of communion. Saturn demands this from us. Saturn in Aquarius gave us the chance to live out our individuality and also our collective belonging. Now, when it enters Pisces, that period changes. I'm not saying it's over, but it changes. Where we live that, of course, Aquarius hopes and dreams, but in the spirit of communion. Everyone is important, everything is important. The self needs to be important for other selves than its own self. And this is so complicated. I don't even sure if some people understand what I said, but this is where our psychology, our soul psychology changes. Jupiter, for a tiny little bit, still stays in Aries, which means until May, but that leaves us a very short time when, all about the self, our beliefs, our sovereignty, our everything, insert everything, our, and us generated by us, what we want, us. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, it's the opposite here. And actually, Aries, the first breath, the beginning, Pisces, the end, when we go into spirit. So, you know, Pisces is when we're already fertilizer, you know what I mean? So, this energy of the beginning of the end, of the Alpha Omega, this is where right now and this year we're all living big endings and big new beginnings. Fresh, big, call it nodes entering into Aries, Libra axis in July. Again, that puts like a even better emphasis on this. So this year, all of this year is about this. Ending and beginning. Now, as Saturn enters into Pisces, the endings are greatly emphasized, and it's very helpful for the ending or the aftermath of the ending. Because the ending period, the actual ending, is more like either in 2020, the whole year 2022 and now, because these planets start getting are energetic right now. But this ending may still extend all of 2023 if some massive ending hasn't, or completion, or one cycle truly ends and the other one begins, hasn't taken place in your life. But chances are for many of us it has taken place. So Saturn in Pisces makes us process it and actually may integrate it into that part of us, while Jupiter and the nodes ensure the new and fresh beginning, and Pluto entering into the sign of Aquarius, that brings the new beginning onto the table. But we might feel a little bit split between realities this week also. Why? Because this ending is and this completion is so important, and the new beginning is simultaneous. So that needs work, that needs focus, that needs all of our power, Pluto power. And Aquarius for our future, hopes, dreams, future, and for others. And the other element is heavily supported by Saturn in Pisces, but Saturn is still Saturn. So Saturn in Pisces also knows when to stop sacrificing, when to stop martyrdoming, when to stop spoiling something, corroding someone, again, corrosion, with compassion. Pisces, Saturn in Pisces is when stop helping when you're making that person lazy, and the reality check. Some victims or some mental health, any kind of health patients are master manipulators. And Saturn in Pisces reveals them one by one. This is where their scenario, their scenery, their creation ends. And Saturn in Pisces sometimes mean restrictions. If you faked your illness, social support ends, you lose benefits, you lose anything you got from, the state, but this can mean you lose the supportive parent, you lose the supportive nurse, you lose the supportive, people are not buying it anymore, because Saturn is not buying it anymore. But at the same time, for people who have not received help for many, many years, Saturn makes them receive help. So that is the save. Saturn can be the saving grace. This is where Saturn, one way or another, puts you in the position of receiving help, and if possible, very, very, very unconditionally. The spirit of communion. Now, I know that all of this is more philosophy, but to understand what Saturn is doing is very, very important for us to understand our own feelings. Because this will change how you see your partner, how you feel about the relationship, how you feel about your parents, the past, your upbringing, what connection you have with your parents, children, family, a lot of people from the past. This is where karmic justice is taking place. So you will be involved in family situations, in big things with your partner, and big things. I'm not saying about bad things, conflicts, but life throws something at you. We're in this together, but neither you or me have any experience. So both of us are totally noobs. Excuse my, slang, newbies at this, but at least we're together. That's Saturn and Pisces. We're together, that's Saturn, and Pisces, the enigma, the mystery, solve the problem. But being together makes everything doable, let's say. That's such a positive example. Or a tragedy strikes, but there's a couple. Well, no one's happy, but at least they're together. And especially if tragedy stuck a third person, they two shoulders, two heads, two bodies, two minds, two hearts, two magics, whatever, are better than one. So, for couples and people who are united, of course, this will throw challenges, but the challenges will reap the most, you know, long-lasting rewards possible. So this is actually the good hardship, the good camaraderie, the good brotherhood, sisterhood, yeah. But Saturn, also demands of us to take things very, very seriously. This is where, if we are helping someone, or if we know that fate demands something from us, not to escape from this anymore. Just confront things very, very realistically and not run away from them. Regardless if they're inner issues, outer issues, problems with the law, health problems, we need to confront what is there. So, thank you very much for this long and philosophical introduction, but Saturn does deserve this time from my horoscope because, and every other astrologer is going to be speaking so much about the Saturn into the sign of Pisces. So stay on the lookout for more videos from myself or anyone else, because yeah, this will hold a lot of lessons for us. But getting back to everything else that is going on this week, well, at the beginning of the week, we do have the Sun sextile Uranus aspect, which is a breath of fresh air. And, you know, the Sun is in the sign of Pisces, and that brings the element of dreaminess, the alchemy, faith, prayer, what the inner intent, focus, etc., etc. And Uranus in the sign of Taurus does bring, well, actually the manifestation, the surprise, the result, better said. So, using our spiritual powers, especially with Saturn, and I have to say this again, into the sign of Pisces is greatly encouraged. If something cannot be solved in a very down to earth practical way, this is the period when spiritual empowerment is always a good decision. And this sextile also promotes healing work, because Uranus is the awareness and the sign of Taurus is our basically value system. All those elements, emotional elements, value elements that are fixed within us. And sextile is alchemy. Pisces dissolves and cleans it, basically cleaning, healing, um, the power even of suggestion. This is a very strong personal alchemy where any kind of psychologists, healers, those who do like therapeutic work of any kind are gonna be the main beneficiaries of this sextile. But this is also good for projects, for work, for artists, for ingenuity, for intuition, following your inner voice, following your senses, your dreams. So this aspect is good for a lot of things, but it's a sextile, so it does need that belief element of belief, because that's the action with Pisces. Another energy which is not so easy this week is the Sun holding a square. Sorry. First of all, the square is held by Mars and Neptune, and later on, the Sun joins in. Now, this is a very uncomfortable energy because disillusionment is out there. And disillusionment is packed in one wrapping with everything else. So, this is a strange energy when so much is going on in our lives, inside of us, in karmically even, with other important people. But there is also the disillusionment. That, yes, that friend who I just don't know what to feel or think is a jerk. And the universe, life, is a mirror, of course, in that sense, does not want to let go of this insistent showing that that person is a not so kind person, despite of anything else that you might see positive within them. This is where maybe life insists that that person is not gonna, it's not gonna happen, so to speak. So the other element here is when it's not a person, it's that contract, it's the job, it's the career, it's the travel plan, it whatever it is, but it is. And you cannot unsee it, you cannot ignore it. So, and this Mars and Neptune square does almost demand that we put every ounce of life experience that we were shown in the past 3 to 4 months in our, especially in the past 3 to 4 months in our lives, because we are gonna need it. Things are gonna be that complex and complicated in every way, shape, and form that we're gonna need that wisdom. On the other hand, Saturn in Pisces makes things rather not so complicated. Because, as I said, what we know and what we feel, we feel. But we still need to make sense of life. At the very end of the week, Mercury, of course, is going to join in the square. So Mercury will start holding a square with Uranus as well. So that's when everything is going to be very, very, very complicated. We might feel that whatever we might experience within us or happening to us is so surreal that we don't have any control over it. This is not necessarily bad, because this can, when the universe keeps you in flow, you have no control, but good things happen to you in chains. So you can't really complain about that. Yeah, life is not under control. Every day is a twilight zone, but you can't complain. But of course, there is the opposite when everything is annoyingly, mysterious and just reality doesn't. We can also expect that part. But the other side to this is the, disillusionment. Whatever Mars wanted to kind of show us, then, and I'm so sorry I said Uranus, it's not Uranus, it's Mars. So the Sun and Mercury, one after another, will hold a square with Mars. So yeah, that's the disillusionment. And with Mars and Mercury square, chances are we're not going to be buying into whatever life is offering us, temptation, illusion, Maya wise. Another kind of positive energy in the sky is the Venus and Mars sextile, where Venus is value, Venus is getting what we want, Venus is where our ideas did get us where we needed to be, or even better. So expressing ourselves, uh, accepting any help that we can get, using everything that we have constructively gets us definitely somewhere. So this is really, really good, especially in Gemini kind of things, when we have to communicate, when we have to write, when we have to negotiate, when we have to impress verbally or through our gestures, whatever, when we have to be, really, really presentable. So this is a really, really good energy for negotiations. And with the Saturn into Pisces and an erratic Pluto energy, it can be a big jackpot. You might be successful at something for the very long term future. Now, another really important energy later on, around the 7th of March, is the full moon that we have in Virgo. Now, this full moon is kind of important because it holds a trine to Uranus, but it also T squares Mars. So it kind of highlights, puts all of the energy, everything that I said until now in one place, into one full moon experience, when we kind of wake up to the fact that, yep, we're not in Kansas anymore. Yep, we have to do what we have to do. The plan is crystal clear, but also the Mars square. Some people need to be left behind. Sometimes we need to be ruthless. Saturn in Pisces is the duty. That is the duty to the spirit of us. And Mars in Gemini the square, well, there are people in our lives who we have great love and sympathy for, but it's, in a way, not mutual, because those people, as much as we love them, cannot help us, and they don't help us ever because they can't. We don't expect this from them, but when it's time to say goodbye, because we have to follow our, as I said, Saturn duty, mission, where the spirit guides us, something is made real, a commitment that we hold. For a lot of people, this is solitude. This is sacred journey. This is zero social connections, zero friends, zero going out, zero nightlife, zero fun, zero sea. And not because life forces them, they want this. This is where they start something big. A big journey for some people, health, detox, spiritual journey, pilgrimage, sabbatic year. So for a lot of people, this is massive with this Saturn in Pisces. But a lot of big decisions are born in this Virgo full moon. And at the time of this full moon, Saturn is, if I'm not mistaken, 1 minute away from Pisces. So it's dipped into Pisces. So how relevant, how impactful, how deeply karmic. That very element makes this so very, very karmic. So this Virgo full moon is much more karmic than it should be, actually. And I have a separate video for about this if you'd like to find out all the details. But collectively out there, this might bring a mini health crisis. Virgo, Virgo is microbiology, the everything that lives in our gut, all the microorganisms, virus, stuff like that. Um, and Uranus in Taurus, surprise, surprise. Well, it is actually a positive energy because we eliminate something, but Uranus is the awareness that, well, infections can, very quickly spread. Or there are certain other types of health problems out there in the world, especially which are not really viral or contagious of nature, but a substance, radioactivity, electromagnetic pollution. That is also Virgo, the different kind of sensibilities, and Uranus is technology. But at the same time, Uranus, technology can be a problem solver in so very many different ways. So the trine to Uranus can also represent a treatment. It can also represent that technology as 3 steps ahead of the problem, and but the emotion, the collective emotion is there, and the square to Mars. This is discrimination. This is where, why are you making certain differences? Certain categories are advantaged and others are not. So this can also create quite a lot of conflict within, the legal world, in within medical stuff or medical rights, or so it's gonna be quite, and there might be some kind of transport blockages as well with the Mars square, and that might cause a great, you know, protest or anything of that nature. Um, And also another very important energy, at the very end of the week, Jupiter does meet Chiron in the sky. So that Chiron is the healer, of course. So Jupiter expands its expression. Virgo is also a sign which has to do with, doctors, nurses, alternative healers, plant healers, all of that. Tea, plant medicine, you know, Uranus and Taurus has also something to do with healing, especially with tradition, the tradition of healing with nature. Needless to say, Saturn in the sign of Pisces has very much to do with healing, but even lab work and stuff like that. So, very many energies at this time speak about healing, healthcare, and alternatives to healing. So we might be seeing this energy play out on the world stage one way or another, either as an alternative healing method being accepted to a more academic field or in a more official way, or that all everything that is alternative might gain a lot of popularity, making it, and when I say this, understand it symbolically, be a valid competitor for the classic treatment. And this is also going to change our collective mood, feeling, behavior towards healing and what integrity means. So this Saturn in Pisces is gonna evoke a lot of things, a lot of important issues around these things. Because why? It's the sign of finalities. Whatever we, um, and I say collectively here, draw the conclusion upon, well, whenever humanity draws a conclusion, that's something that stays in human history and value and legends and spirit, or something forever. So we are doing exactly that in this coming 3 years. In this next 3 years, we're in the middle of that. We are the ones drawing the conclusions of everything that happened, not just in this past 30 years, but also, you know, the Great Conjunction, past 200 years. Or Saturn and Pluto conjunction, past 500 years. We are basically drawing the conclusions. Everyone who is alive today and has a processor is a brain cell for the universe drawing the conclusion. So you can imagine Saturn. This is gonna stay in human history forever, basically. Just like so very many things. You know. Um, so history, of course, is being not necessarily written, but experienced for it to be written. So this is big. This is very, very big. And the astrological clock says it starts this week already. But next we have the Aries, Sun entering into the sign of Aries. So the Aries equinox, new beginning. But what a new beginning. What a fresh new breath, because Pluto is knocking in Aquarius. So this is a really, really powerful new beginning. But, you know, this isn't necessarily the dreamy, rose-tinted butterfly ones where you have, emotions coursing through your veins, excited like a child. No, no, no. This is where it's heavy. This is where you're already in it and you just have to make the best of it. When you're like washed to you have a shipwreck but are washed to a beautiful, fertile paradise island. Well, you are safe. It's a miracle. Some people wish that all their lives and in vain. It's like a dream come true, but you still need to process that the shipwreck has happened. And so the paradise, the miracle, the well-being, well, you need at least a few days for that to begin, for you to wake up to the fact that, look, these fruits, and I'm free, and it's, and especially if you have other people, loved ones with you. But you still need a few days to process that, yeah, this happened. So this is how it might feel like. We need to process how very deeply the energy shift already has taken us into our future, and already begun anew, and we have no option but to catch up with it, to actually catch up with it. So it's not the butterflies and excitedness and that child one, but rather where it's a big thing that already happened to us due to our own work, due to our own whatever we done in the past. Pisces, the past. We are getting what we've done. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, well, I do believe I can actually say it in a few words. Reaping what we saw. That's it. That's really it in any way, shape, and form. Spiritually, materially, karmically, psychologically, in any area of life can be possible. We get what we gave. And, if we don't like what we are getting, this is also good energy because we repair it, we make amends here and now, and we can terminate any karma in a millisecond by, of course, doing what we need to do. So, this also means that whatever happens collectively, as heavy as it might be, perhaps our individual expressions we're gonna be absorbed into it, sucked into it way, way more. So the collective expression of the energy with Saturn in the sign of Pisces is gonna have a big deficit, because no one is going to be in that reality to live it all that much. So that means for those people who are in it because they belong in it, is going to be very, very, very uncomfortable, because they will be alone in their reality, so to speak, because everyone else is going to be sucked into their own karmic unfolding. And what does this mean? The energy of manifestation is going to be in great deficit out there in the world. The collective part is going to freeze, because we're going to using all the energy for our own life stories. So this is going to create a very strange, almost breaking of reality that we're going to be seeing palpably out there, but exactly how, I'm not sure yet. So, yes, what I'm saying is reality breaks. There are going to be fissures in reality because the collective, but in the sense of communion, is going to suck out, and I'm gonna be using simple kindergarten terms for everyone to understand what them. We're gonna suck out the energy like a sponge, the soul from the collective, Pisces, because the spirit of communion needs it more. But Pluto is by this time in Aquarius, the internet. Humanity's manifested quite physical collective consciousness. So all the power is there. But the power is starved from energy. So this will create an imbalance. How will Pluto and Aquarius start inviting all of us away from our dream Saturn in Pisces, which is good or bad, but we don't want to be outside of that. It doesn't matter if it's the biggest drama in our lives or if it's the best part of our lives, but we don't care what happens on the outside. We don't care what happens collectively, and nothing can make us care. Why? Because the divine wants us to stay in our Piscean bubbles. But what does that involve? Pluto needs power. So how will Pluto absorb us out from our bubbles? And it's 0 degrees. So Pluto doesn't necessarily manifest in its most ruthless way at 0 degrees. It kind of manifests as the temptation, as the shadowy part, but which glitters like gold. What will Pluto in Aquarius offer the individual to start living something collectively? Why? Because it needs the energy, it needs the soul, it needs the belief. Collective reality is going to be starved from belief. And what will Pluto do? What will shock us that much to, you know, put our heads out of the Piscean story that we are living, all of us? What happens outside? That is to be seen. But amongst everything else, we will see reality breaking. How, as I said, that is going to be an enigma that we're going to be experiencing in the next couple of months. And of course, this week will not be part of that yet. But the strange dreams, states, intuitive senses that we're experiencing are actually premonitoring that. The weirdnesses, the unusual expressions that we're gonna be seeing in the coming months out there. So, yep, a lot of strangeness is going on, but it's part of the deal. Because, as I said, the energies here which hold a reality together. We must understand that collective reality works pretty much the same way as the individual one. Just that our kind, as we unified as a species, is basically the psyche, the soul, the heart, the whatever. And when the heart energy from a person is cast within, that person is living something deep within themselves, it is more than natural that that person is highly ignorant what happens to them outside. Friends are ignored, job is ignored, and it's absolutely fine that way. Everyone has that moment in life. Let's say you're on holiday. Of course you ignore everyone else. But that means that when everyone else might need you desperately, how will they determine you to come back from your holiday and help them? So this is the kind of energy. Even reality has a housekeeping and energy. It needs an X amount of belief for something to function. Like, let me give you an example. And this is quite a good example because Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, energetically the wrecking ball, coming back in September. Yeah, in September it's going to be back in 29 degrees of Capricorn. A bank needs X amount of belief from people for its activities not to be seen as illegal and crime or thieving. Because in spirit it steals. In spirit, to use your own brethren and make profit out of them is a crime against spirit. Right? Right. So it needs us to excuse it. It needs X amount of people to consider that loans and making profit out of this is moral, is ethical, and, would we change our belief? It would be a criminal. And divine justice would crush it. We wouldn't need to lift a finger, just divine justice would crush it because we stop excusing it. As as long as it can keep us praying for it to exist, it's safe. It has license to exist, prosper, thrive, etc. This is just a belief, but it makes something real or not. This is Pluto's power, if you know what I mean. So reality needs housekeeping of energy. It needs a certain amount of belief to keep something in existence. When that belief is withdrawn because it's the natural cycle to it, then, as I said, Capricorn is in big, big, big trouble because it doesn't have nurture. It doesn't have sustenance. It oozes out, it bleeds out the energy of belief. So it can only express its shadowy side and allure us back to it, or try and get it back by force. But this is belief. So how do you get it by force? So if you want to get it by force, you need to create such a big illusion out there in the world that even the most spirited people fall for it or want to fall for it. Why want to fall for it? Because it's funny. You know, for example, and this is where I am not saying it's real or it's gonna happen, but if someone stages an alien whatever invasion or friendship or whatever, it doesn't matter, to some people it's so laughable that they actually said, well, if people are so silly, I'm definitely supporting this. And for others, it will definitely present to them something more 10 times better than their own karmic journeys and life stories and emotional things. So it will suck them out from their Saturn and Pisces journeys. But if to create that, you need so much resource that if you input the resource, you deserve to. So you see, energy housekeeping. How will Capricorn get back its sustenance and power? Because by now it knows it's starved. It knows it's bad news. So it's bad news for big, big institutions, if you know what I mean. Because by now they know that the sustenance of energy, of belief, of faith, of psyche, of sheer psyche is done and dusted. So we will see out there big moves happening. And this is where the Jupiter and conjunct Chiron comes into play. What will the great healer manifest as? A greater wound? Will Jupiter magnify the wound? Or will Jupiter, you know, even heal the scar by transforming it into the most beautiful tattoo? What will Jupiter do at this moment? So I would like to leave it at this. Thank you so very much for listening. Thank you for all the love, all the support, and I'm wishing everyone great strength, great resilience, great wisdom this week, because we are definitely going to be needing it. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, bye for now.